is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Cinema Crusaders. That's right, it is Friday afternoon out here on the West Coast, Friday evening out there on the East Coast. It might even be Saturday somewhere, but no matter where you are, it's time for another episode of Cinema Crusaders. Now, last week, we called a little audible. We did a little Fantastic Four review, so go check that out, everybody, if you want to see us talking about something more modern. But today, we are doing Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978, starring Donald Sutherland, Leonard Nimoy, Jeff Goldblum, yes, all sorts of people. And I had never seen this before. I don't know if you had ever seen this before, Steve.
No.
I've got a lot to say about it. It's interesting. So, but before we do that, I want to introduce. Well, let me introduce myself first. For everybody who doesn't know me, I am Nem, otherwise known as Dave Howard. I am a writer. I do a lot of other things, including hosting podcasts and stuff. You can find all my stuff and in the links. Eventually, I will start putting the links down below. I got to be better about that. We're going to promote all our things. But I am also joined by my fellow co-host, who is a writer, an educator, and an editor, none other than Steve Shadewing Sellers. So happy to have you here, Steve.
I'm glad to be here. I mean, this was one of those movies I kind of wanted to make sure that, we were all on this. Well, I wouldn't say the same page, but more like, we were firing on all cylinders with it. And I think with this one, it wasn't as exciting as I thought it would be, but at the same time, I can respect it on a technical level. There are a lot of really interesting things that this movie does.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot to talk about here. We're going to get into it, but I'm going to say, if I think I had seen this movie when I was a kid, I would have a different feelings about it because it would have nostalgia points. Having seen it as 54 with everything else I've seen, I'm looking at it through a different lens, but I still respect it, But before we get into the movie, though, I do want to give a shout out to our other two Cinema Crusaders who I know are going to be back eventually. They're just dealing with life and everything else that's going on right now. But shout out to Jeff Bracey, who is also an artist. He is working on all sorts of projects and doing that, and we're going to make sure we share that. And then, of course, we also have our resident filmmaker, Lance Lucero. I think one of his films, The Last Resort, just got accepted into another movie. Was it cinema festival? So congratulations to him. He is out there making movies and spreading the word, and we can't wait for him. He's been really busy this summer. We can't wait for him to get back from his triumphant tour and welcome him back as well. But right now, we are on a science fiction kick. So we're doing science fiction, and then we're going to be going into horror, and then we're going to go back to our regular format. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when it comes. So, but this was my pick, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and I decided to go with the one from 1978, which it's interesting because as I was watching this, my wife was watching it with me in the morning, and she's looking at it. She's like, "Why are you watching that one?" She's like, "You need to watch the black and white one." So I was almost like, "You've got to come on this podcast," She had definite opinions on which one she preferred. I don't know why. I haven't seen the black and white one, but I watched this movie. I think it's one of those staples that even if you've never watched the movie, you know the movie, but really quickly.
You've heard of it at least.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those staples in horror. It's like one of those things, those concepts that is just percolated. It's based on a book. I forget what the name of it is. It's based on a book by...
Yeah, it was called The Body Snatchers. They just kind of made it sound more 1950s.
Yeah. It was a psychological horror book. I don't remember who it, by Jack Finney, 1955 novel.
Right.
And but the movie opens up where we're on another planet. It looks like Mars, and there's this like goop. I'm gonna almost call it ooze, escaping up, and somehow it goes through space and eventually lands on our planet. And lands in San Francisco of all places, and lands on all of the plant life, and eventually the plant life starts spawning and growing, and little by little it starts taking people over, and you get signs that something's wrong almost immediately when this one guy is talking about how he's being chased down by them, the stereotypical them, and then eventually them get to him and they kill him right out in the street, and nobody's doing anything about it, as Donald Sutherland and what is her name? Gosh, and I am
Brooke Adams, I believe.
Yeah, she plays Elizabeth Driscoll, Brooke Adams. So goes by.
Yeah, I will also add that the guy who was murdered there was Kevin McCarthy, who was in the original one. I personally know him as the guy who played Walter Jameson in The Twilight Zone.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff. He's been in a lot of movies. You'd recognize him if you saw him. Like, he's a recognizable face. He's been in a ton of things. So, and in fact, well, we'll get to it when we get to the cast, but there are a ton of supporting actors and actresses in here who I recognize from other horror movies, other pictures, including one from one of our favorite horror movies, Alien, but we'll get to her. So, so anyway,
Andy and Malcolm.
Yes. So Donald Sutherland plays a health inspector who's kind of an ass, if we're being perfectly honest, and he doesn't believe what's going on at first, and eventually he's clued into the whole thing, and he goes to his friend Leonard Nimoy, who plays I think he's a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and the name of his character is Dr. David Kibner, and he goes to Kibner to help him. Little does he know that Kibner has been turned already, and eventually the full scope of the plot is revealed. That they're replacing people and creating duplicates, pod people, that would come to be part of the lexicon. Now it's just accepted as part of our.
And an MST3K episode, by the way.
Yeah, and I mean, and the pod people. I mean, we're on podcast now, so we're pod people. And so Donald Sutherland and one other person, Brooke Adams, who plays Elizabeth Driscoll. Their characters are on the run after some of the other people who are with them either fall by the wayside or are taken in and become part of this pod conspiracy as well. And they're getting through San Francisco and hoping to get out of the city and warn people. And they realize that this whole conspiracy is going worldwide. And Donald Sutherland eventually his companion, Elizabeth, is also... She falls asleep and is taken by the pod people. And then she conveniently turns up naked because, of course, she does. So it's the 70s. We get to see a Brooke Adams nude. So there's that. And then Donald Sutherland kind of fighting for his life, doing, spitting into the wind, pissing it in the wind, whatever you want to do it, trying to burn what little he can. And then that's the last that we see of him. And then he shows up to work, and you're not sure what has happened, although you suspect. And then right at the end of the movie, the famous meme happens where one of the other survivors, Nancy Belichick, played by Veronica Cartwright, shows up, and she's like, "Oh, Matthew, you made it out." And Matthew sees her, and he's like, and does the pointing and everything, and he has become one of the pod people as well. Fade to black, and that's the end. Now, I will say, in the 50s version, you get the happy ending. So, and I'll let you assume what the happy ending is, but I'm sure that you have an idea what the happy ending would probably be. I don't want to spoil that for anybody, but at its heart, I think that's the plot of the movie. Do you have anything to add to the plot that I missed, or anything that you noticed that you would point out to everybody?
Yeah, I think the only thing is like, I think it's kind of questionable when Donald Sutherland gets replaced by the pod people. Yeah. Yeah,
screw happy endings.
There's
a surprise coming from the guy behind Omen Publications.
Bad guy lives here. But I was thinking that we didn't know when exactly he got switched. That was where I was thinking, because there was a point I was kind of wondering, whether Donald Sutherland was just like going through the motions and like pretending to join these guys, and then
Right.
maybe at some point he got caught, and that's kind of why he ends up getting switched. But we don't know for sure. They make you kind of guess, and how much of So and Sutherland's performance is so good as both the alien and as him as Matthew that you have no freaking clue, and that's really a testament to how great Donald Sutherland was. I mean, this guy would even be, was he even in this whole movie? You know, he's able to tell this story, you know, that seems to be completely pointless, and the way he does the voices of the other characters that he's doing is just so good that even though this story doesn't amount to anything and is completely pointless, it's riveting because Sutherland just performs it that well.
I will say, to your point at the end, the part that threw me, because, all right, let me back up for a second. I do have some knowledge of this movie, but it's not from the movie itself. I was a big reader of Mad Magazine when I was a kid, and Mad Magazine parodied this in one of its issues, like not long after it came out. So I read the Mad Magazine parody, but everything was there, including the nudity of Barbara in Mad Magazine, you know? So I knew that Donald Sutherland was going to turn, but I'm watching this movie, and at the end there, Donald Sutherland, and probably the director had him do this, Philip Kaufman, is doing these subtle things that Donald Sutherland did when he had not been turned, like with his hands, these movements and stuff. And so I was kind of thrown off because the thing about all of these pod people is they have no real personality anymore. They have the memories and everything, but they have no individuality. So the fact that Donald Sutherland's character, that Matthew, was doing these things that made him stand out from the crowd a little bit, even if they were subtle, really threw me off. So it was like a red herring for the ending, which I thought was pretty good, you know? Yeah. So I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, first-rate actor, and virtually everything he does, and we definitely get to see it here. He earns his stripes with this movie.
So let's get right into it, because I don't want to take anything away from the movie itself, and we're going to give our final ratings on the movie at the end before we get out of here. Are there different types of pods? They don't make it doesn't appear to be that way, you know, so
hard to say. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't. I mean, we do see a dog pod thing, but who the heck knows where that came from?
Actually, I can answer that one. So remember when they're fleeing from the city hall, and both the old man, the beggar, and the dog are both laying on the ground and be assimilated into two different pods. And Matthew stops to try and rescue them, and he's able to smash one pod. He smashes one pod. So both the dog and the old man were both assimilated into the same pod, and they combined them. So it's subtle. Okay. You have to go back and watch it. Yeah, it's kind of disturbing. And when you see it on screen, it's really disturbing. So, but
it's a very visual movie, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And there were some things that were, well, we're going to get to that when we get to visual effects and stuff. But I want to talk about some of the actors, and we're going to hit a couple of them individually, and then we'll do like the rest of the cast. So let's start with Donald Sutherland. And I'm going to let you start this one off first, because Donald Sutherland, I think, was the big draw for both of us. We are both huge fans of Donald Sutherland's work. So
what really is there to say? I mean, he's playing the Stealth Inspector, and they definitely play him like he's a little bit of a hard-boiled detective in a way. He kind of looks like one. Like he has this raggedy rain jacket that he's like always wearing, and you know, just like in this suit under that, and you know, he goes and you know does this whole job. So we see him kind of establishing early on that you know he's shaking down this restaurant run by this French dude, and it's like there's a rat turd in there, and it's just you know, and the way that he kind of plays it, it's just you could kind of tell that he's not really an honest dude. You know, not to mention he's running around with this other guy's wife, but that's neither here nor there. So this guy is definitely a flawed character in many respects.
Yeah.
But it's like you really don't care because Sutherland's performance is so good that he's likable despite that.
Mhm.
And and again, a lot of it is just a little bit of the performance, a little bit in the subtle humor that he brings to the character, and a lot of it is just the way he just sort of plays it very subtly, and um, you know, and I will say, like, by the end, he just kind of goes on, and Mike not only will get this reference and goes full on Harry Malcolm by the end, and just like, yeah, I'm gonna burn every single freaking thing that I can find. And I'm like, yeah, if you're going to go out and be replaced by a pop person, at least, kill a bunch of them before you do it.
Yeah. Although the thing, I'm going to go back to one of the things you mentioned was about fooling around the other person's wife. I'll tell you, that is one of the aspects of this movie that really, I'm not going to say dated it for me, but it did at the same time. It places it squarely in the 70s. And here's this guy, and I was like on and off. I was like, is he going at it with this other guy's girlfriend or wife or whatever, or isn't he? Like, are they flirting? What is this? This is the 70s. What is going on here? So I was like, what in the world? It's like, I know what I would think if I saw some guy talking to my girlfriend or wife like that. So
yeah.
Yeah,
they were heavily hinting it, early on, and then it just became pretty obvious.
Yeah. What was interesting to me is that this is right around the time, 1975, 76, 77, 78, where Donald Sutherland made this transition. Swingers. It was even more insidious than being Swingers, because he was just kind of like the two of them. Like, the woman was in a relationship, but she obviously didn't love the guy she was with. And it was obvious that she was in love with him and he was in love with her. And it's like, Jesus, get a room already. It's like, just get it over with. But yeah, this is this time in Donald Sutherland's career where, like a lot of other comedians, like, I knew him best from Animal House and Kelly's Heroes and MASH, where he played the original Hawkeye. All these very funny characters, and he was in other movies as well, but those are the ones I knew him for. And this is where he starts transitioning. Pretty soon he's in Clute. He's in what else? I'm looking here.
Yeah.
Oh, he's in the Dirty Dozen.
Yep.
He's been in a ton of stuff. And eventually he makes his way to be playing, rat bastards like President Snow and the Hunger Games, and and everything else. He was the jerky general in Outbreak in the 90s. So all of these characters that he played.
Yeah, he was the deep throat guy in JFK as well. I mean, he didn't have a very long part, but he's very memorable in it.
So, I mean, it's like a lot of other comedians, Robin Williams, Tom Hanks. They have this range. I don't know what it is about comedians that start off as comedians that they're able to do dramatic parts as well so well. It just seems to be the really good ones can do that. And Donald Sutherland was one of those. And one of these days, when I get some time, I'm going to put up a little retrospective for us to watch of all of the things that we've enjoyed him in. But I thought he was fantastic in this movie. Once again, understated, but what he does and the way he delivers his lines and everything is pretty worth. It's pretty memorable and worth watching.
Yeah.
Another person I think we got to talk about is Jeff Goldblum as Jack Belichick, and this is one of his first roles ever. I mean, this is a young Jeff Goldblum. I was surprised. I didn't know he was in this when I tuned in to watch
I didn't either. Yeah, this is pre The Fly, pre Jurassic Park, pre Independence Day, all that stuff.
Yeah. And he wouldn't really get exposed, like wide exposure, and become a name until The Fly, and then after The Fly, till Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is what really launched him, and then Independence Day and everything else. But even in a smaller part in this movie, one of the things that impressed me is here's this young Jeff Goldblum, and I think he held his own on film with some titans in Leonard Nimoy and Donald Sutherland. He did not seem outclassed or upstaged at all. and what he brought. I mean, there are some scenes where he is just the three of them on there, and they're having some intense discussions, and Goldblum is right there acting his ass off with the two of them. I was really, really impressed. What did you think of Jeff Goldblum in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see the signs of the person that Goldblum would grow into, and I have a
Yeah.
feeling like he saw, I've got Leonard Nimoy and Donald Sutherland right here. I better do a damn good job if I'm going to be, even close to touching these guys. And if that was the case, he definitely measured up to them, because there's enough recognizable, of the actor that we know from his later roles in this. It's very rough. I mean, there's still a rawness to it, but I think it's a rawness that it heightens the performance, because he's playing this really young dude who is kind of going, toe to toe with Kibner, and it's like, he really kind of has to bring it.
Not only that, there's a moment where not only is he going toe to toe with Kibner, but there's a moment where he is telling Matthew, Donald Sutherland's character, what he saw, and Matthew doesn't want to believe any of it, And so, this is the scene. There's a scene where he and his wife discovered something uncanny in their mud bath establishment, and and so he's going back and forth with Donald Sutherland on this, and the two of them are fantastic. But there's a third character in there who now I'm going to mention, because when I first saw her on screen, I was like, who is this? Who in the world am I looking at? I recognize her, and I can't recognize her, and I don't know why. And it was from another movie that came out the same year. And
it was Lambert.
And I recognized her when she cried. And suddenly I recognized her. I was like, oh, crap, the xenomorph is going to come get her. Yeah. It's Veronica Cartwright, who plays Lambert in Alien. But she is, once again, she's a great supporting actress. And she plays, how do I put it? She doesn't play the damsel in distress, but the horror movie damsel who is about to get just jacked up. She does it really well. So,
Yeah, she was definitely a scream queen of the classic era.
Yeah. And she's been in a lot of other things, but, for me, she'll always be Lambert, and now she'll be, I didn't know she was part of that infamous, Donald Sutherland pointing scene at the end. So,
she was who he was pointing at.
Yeah. So that was pretty crazy. So that was, I enjoyed her. Now, one of the people I was surprised by in this movie, and I'm going to kick it over to you in a second before we get to the big name besides Donald Sutherland, was Brooke Adams playing Elizabeth Driscoll. And the reason I was surprised was that I don't remember seeing her before this, and I don't remember seeing her after this. So what did you think of Brooke Adams' performance as basically the leading lady in this movie? So
I have the same reaction. I'm like, I don't know who this is. I was kind of like, doing the whole Michael Rosenbaum, Lex Luthor thing. I have no idea who this is. and I'm just, because it's like you said, I don't know anything that she's been in, like, at all.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like she belongs in this movie. There's nothing about her performance that seems out of place. She seems to have perfectly good chemistry with Donald Sutherland. She plays the role that she plays quite well. She's a doctor, or at least, somebody who's married to a dentist. And she's a professional, and, she's helping, Sutherland out, identifying these things forensically. I mean, she's a professional woman, and yet, I mean, she's somebody who also is like doing a little bit of the running away stuff as well. There are definitely 70s attitudes here. But at the same time, I kind of felt like Adams played all of those aspects well.
I agree with you. And the other thing that got me, I mean, let's be honest, she's good looking, so it's not like.
Believe me, did they show that by the end of the movie?
Yeah. Well, but also as she's good looking, period. Let's just be honest. But she's got a good looking face. I thought that she's got a look that was almost timeless, because it was timeless for then. It's timeless for now.
I
very
was
contemporary.
thinking like they fit the whole scenes with her and Sutherland running off and doing the stuff he did. I was thinking like a Hitchcock movie, like one of those movies of mistaken identity, like a North by Northwest. There is a little bit of that flavor to these two
Well,
together, and I think that she really makes that work. She's the evil Marie Saint of the movie, that kind of thing.
yeah. Honestly, I was watching her and I was comparing her to a contemporary of hers who was in another movie from 1978 that we both know, Margot Kidder. She looks a
Mm-hmm.
lot like Margot Kidder. I
She
think she's
does,
got
yeah.
the acting chops of a Margot Kidder. She had the humor of a Margot Kidder. There's a scene where they have her do this thing with her eyes to prove she's who she is, and it's hilarious. It was
Mm-hmm.
really endearing. Um, she's kind of like the understated one of the understated stars of the movie, which is why
Mm-hmm.
it's so shocking that I don't remember ever seeing her in anything. That neither of us remember ever seeing her in anything ever again. So
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because if she's been in anything, and I will have to check now, if she
yeah,
has been in anything, yeah, she was in. Oh, she was in the Dead Zone. Oh, okay, she was in the version with Christopher Walken. Okay, so I have
okay,
seen something with her in it. I take that back. I just forgot she was in it.
okay. But still, I mean, you would think she would have had even a bigger career than that because she seemed like
Yeah,
someone who really, really was talented, and not only that, was talented with a look that seems made to be on the big screen.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
um, maybe I'm speculating here, but maybe this was to get a bigger part. She let herself do nudity, and maybe that stopped her from being more. I'm just guessing. I don't know. I don't think that the nudity was really necessary, to be honest with you. But
It really
uh,
wasn't. No,
yeah, I'm not complaining, but uh, it is what it
no
is.
red-blooded American male was complaining. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Um, Anybody else from the extended cast that you would want to mention before we move on to another subject about the show?
Yeah, I think
Wait a
the
minute. Hold on.
only.
We forgot Leonard Nimoy. So,
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Other than Leonard Nimoy, I can't think of anybody.
okay. So let's do Leonard Nimoy. And I'm going to kick it over to you to let you start on Leonard Nimoy. Because how can we forget Leonard Nimoy? I mean, he's
No,
Spock.
you can't.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I will say, like, one of the biggest
And you're
problems.
absolutely, I'm going to say
You're
to Mike there, you're absolutely right. You're
correct.
absolutely right.
Yeah, that probably is what happened here. No, I mean, when you're dealing with Leonard Nimoy, I mean, for every role he's going to be in, he's going to be compared to one role, and that is Mr. Spock. Like,
Right.
it's unavoidable, and he's struggled very much against that typecasting. Now, but I will say, like, here they actually used him pretty well because it's like he is both the alien and this other character Kibner, and the Kibner character is very much this cult of personality type guy, where he's kind of charming when we first meet him. He's like you sweet talking all these people into buying his nonsense and the things that he's saying, and it's like, yeah, he's doing this convincingly, but then you kind of like get to the alien underneath the mask, shall we say. And it's like this is kind of where Nimoy really shines because he's had years and years of playing inhuman sort of characters, and in this
Right.
particular case, I just feel like he brought a coldness and a malevolence to it. I mean, beyond what he did as Spock, really. I
Yeah.
think we definitely see that, and I think this is probably why he took that role because it's like, okay, it's a variation on a theme. It lets me do things I don't typically do, or that a lot of actor or a lot of directors don't let me do. And he took it and he ran with it. So it's like, yeah, you're dealing with you know the great the one of the greatest actors in Star Trek. And
Right.
you know and he managed to hold his own against all these other guys, and it's a good ensemble cast, even though you have a headliner like Nimoy in it.
Yeah. Uh, I have a question for you before I give my comments on Leonard Nimoy in the movie. when do you think Nimoy's character turned in the movie? Because I looked it up. I was curious if anyone ever said.
I always had the feeling he was already turned when we meet him.
You're absolutely correct, which is what I thought too. But I wanted to make sure. And yeah, he was one of the first ones, which kind of makes sense. Yeah. But I think that he was so good in his acting and keeping it understated that you're not quite sure as you're watching. You're like, yeah, is he? Isn't he? Like, there were a couple characters you knew exactly when they turned. You know, you're like, okay,
yeah,
this guy is different now. Leonard Nimoy. I mean, I agree with everything you said about his performance in this movie. I think that he was probably picked because he had played Spock.
Yeah.
He has this ability to play an emotionless human like Spock, so emotionless emotion, and bring that. And, the look on Kibner's face when Kibner is killed in the movie was pretty priceless. It was pretty good. So I enjoyed that.
I did have a good laugh when he's talking about survival of the fittest, and then he gets his ass kicked from behind.
Yeah. Although I do have to say, one thing I do have to say about Leonard Nimoy is that I think you're absolutely right, is that he got typecast. I mean, before Star Trek, he had been on 2 seasons of Mission Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was also a filmmaker and director. And then he got cast in Star Trek for, what did that thing run? 3 seasons? And then that was it. That pretty much defined his acting career for the rest of his career. Mm-hmm. The only other thing I remember him from as a kid, and I watched the show all the time, was he was the host of In Search of. So
yeah. And he was another one. He was another one of the original TOS actors that was in Twilight Zone as well.
Ooh, damn! Look at Mike Donnelly laying the nerd smackdown on us. Very good, sir. Very good.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was trying to say, and I said it badly. But the thing is like he's playing a little bit different here because he truly is an emotionless alien in this movie. Whereas he has that, and as Spock, he has this half human side. So yeah, you are correct that he's just suppressing emotion as Spock.
Yeah, but I think it's unfortunate because the thing that he did do at one point, and it's a little understated, but because it's a movie in the 70s, Kibner's got a little bit of that swinging spirit in him, they're at the party and he's like, hey man, it's like, you're imagining this guy before he got turned is like having a freaky scene over this house with the shag carpet and the whole, so I'm like, okay, the black light is on and Scooby-Doo is in the corner, even having Scooby snacks and all that stuff. So
he was having Hefner parties, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Like just watching this guy smile is just like unnerving because you just are not used to Leonard Nimoy smiling.
Yeah. And it would be interesting to have seen Leonard Nimoy as himself, like in the 70s, and like what it was like going out, because people were probably expecting to meet Spock a lot of the time. I probably would have been one of those guys. And instead you're meeting Leonard Nimoy and he's like, look, I'm not Spock. Get away from me, kid. Or something like that. So, but yeah, he was fantastic. All right. Next, I want to go on to visual effects.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie, great comment. Reprime directive, one of the better looks outside the Vulcan psyche. Yeah, I would love to do that. I read some of William Shatner's Star Trek books that I really liked, like the stuff. There were some books about Saavik and stuff that I enjoyed, but
I don't remember if I read that one or not. Most of the ones that I've read were the ones by Peter David, and that like includes like a couple of his TOS novels and his Next Generation stuff, New Frontier, which was awesome. So I mean those are kind of my favorite, but. I do remember that book. It's just been a while since I read it.
I'll have to admit that as a teenager, I had a thing for Kirstie Alley as Saavik from Wrath of Khan, and so that's why I read the Saavik books. But they were good books too. So. She was definitely svelte back in the day. Yeah. And I
books
thought
of
that
regular comics.
I
Yeah.
thought that she was the much better Savick than whoever played her later. So um, let's see. So visual effects. So one of the things talking, with doing Cinema Crusaders and all of us have our experience, and we're also with the internet, we're able to know a lot more how they do visual effects and stuff. But we've always been into movies, all of us, is that we've kind of seen how the sausage is made, and to a certain extent, it's kind of ruined some of the movie magic for me, although I appreciate it. So there's one scene in here that if you didn't know how they do some of this stuff, is pretty amazing for 1978, and it still looks great. And this is a scene where they actually have um, one of the flowers uh, the plant embeds itself into an actual plant and then opens up and it flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see any strings. There's no cuts. It's one continuous cut. There was no CGI at this time, which is how they would probably do it now, or they might do it practical. But this was all practical and it looked good. Now I know, having done this for a while now, that this was done with, they started the shot with the bloom open and then pulled it closed and then ran the shot back in reverse, which is why it
Yeah.
looks as good and seamless as it does.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I have to say it looks really good. The effects look good. There's not a ton of effects in here, but what they did, a lot of the stuff, it was all practical, with the pod people and with the people being assimilated and everything. I thought really looked really good. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Kicking over to you, what did you
Sure.
think about the special effects in the movie? So.
Really good. I will say they didn't do a whole lot, as you say, in terms of special effects or anything like that, because mostly it's like the stuff at the beginning where they're trying to show like the flowering of this creature as the plant comes to Earth and spreads itself, and then beyond that, it really is like the pod people themselves. So that seems to be like where most of the special effects budget seems to have gone to, and like the makeup for like the for the dog, which I'm just like that was a little cheap, but everything else I thought was really good.
Yeah,
But I have to credit the cinematography on this movie because that's really where the strength of it is. It is beautifully shot. Like there are like portrait level quality of some of these shots. And the director I think really was good at doing that. Although I will say I find it hilarious that the director's name is Robert H. Solo. I'm like, yeah, H as in Han. but
that's a
you
great
know
point.
yeah, but he's a great director. I'm surprised he hasn't done more that I'm aware of.
Well,
Yeah.
one person said, and I would agree with them, and I like that you brought up the cinematography, is that this movie was filmed on location in San Francisco, and someone said that this was one of the best movies for capturing the look and feel of those areas of San Francisco
Mm-hmm.
that has ever been made. And I can't say I
Yeah.
disagree. In fact, there's quite a few. One of the most beautiful buildings in San Francisco is actually their city hall, and there's quite a
Yeah.
few scenes that feature the city hall.
Yeah, there are a lot of I mean, because generally when I think of really good movies that are set there, I keep thinking like Vertigo, Bullet, and things like that. I
Yeah.
would add this one.
Or there's actually another one that starred a young Michael Douglas and Carl Malden, a TV show called The Streets of San Francisco. Great TV show. Actually,
Sure.
detective TV show. So, but yeah, I agree with you. It's got that look and feel. Our fellow Crusader Lance would love it because it's obviously shot on film. It's got that feel to it, but it's got that
Mm-hmm.
gritty 70s lived in dirty feel that Lance loves so much when we've watched other
The
movies.
grindhousey look, yeah,
Yeah, it
just a
does.
bit.
Um, One of the things that got me, and this is where I'm going to talk about, having seen it now at 54 instead of seeing it back in the day, is that because it's so good at capturing that moment in time in that place, watching it now for the first time, it felt dated to me to a certain extent. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering if you felt the same way.
Yeah, I was like 3 years old when this movie came out, so dating myself a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah, this definitely kind of goes a little bit farther back than I would have remembered. But yeah, I can definitely see like there is a definite 70s-ness to like the way people dress and the way they kind of look in the cars that they're driving. Like when you kind of look at how beat up and what a piece of crap Donald Sutherland's car is, and with and with the cracks in the window because that dude from the restaurant went after him. It was just like, yeah, it feels lived in, and it kind of adds a little bit to that noirish feel that I got from it as well. But I think it's also something that really kind of shows you the time and the place of it, and it feels very believable in that way. So yeah, I did catch that.
Yeah, I was 7 when this movie came out. But I mean, I remember this time. I went to San Francisco for the first time when like the year after this. So I remember San Francisco from when I was that old. So like it feels right. If I had watched this movie when I was a teenager, like in the 80s, it would have just felt contemporary or a little old for me, which was why it was unusual. But I mean, I remember all this. Like I remember my parents drove around in a crap car, so it's like it was, and all that stuff.
I remember old beat up Celicas all over the place and things like that.
Yeah.
Chevy Novas. Yeah.
And everything. So it was, so it, instead of, looking at it through nostalgia glasses, it really felt like I was taking a trip back in time to my childhood without the nostalgia part. It was like, oh, wow, this is old, so, but it was interesting. Let's see. I find that 70 film has a raw feeling to it. It feels undiluted, if that makes sense. No, I mean,
yes, it does. Yes.
Yeah. Plus, if I'm just saying how it made me feel, it didn't really take away from the experience. But it's one of those things where watching it now as a new, quote unquote, new movie for me, because it's the first time I've watched it, you get a certain feel versus, let's say, watching Halloween for the first time. It's like, I've seen Halloween or I've seen bits of Halloween. It's like already in my brain. So when I watch it now, it's almost like part of me is transported back to the first time I saw that stuff. So it's not a big shock, It's hard to explain. So, but I mean, all in all, I don't think that it's dated in a bad way. It's just you're looking at it all of a sudden, you're realizing this was what the 70s were actually like to a certain extent. So
yeah, it's a product of its time, but not in a way that I think makes the movie feel anachronistic or anything like that. It's just this is a snapshot. This is a snapshot of 1978, and that's just what's going on in this movie.
And at the same time, it's like here's another movie from 1978 that I rewatched recently before I went and watched the new Superman movie. I watched 1978 Superman.
Sure.
That is a product of its time. You go back
Absolutely.
And I know people that had never seen it before, young people, and watched it, and they're like, this is old. This is corny, And I'm watching it going, hey, this is what I remember. But if you go and you watch it, and take the nostalgia out of it, you look at it, it's like it's very much a 70s movie. Metropolis is a 70s city at that point, Otis is walking around in a leisure suit, for God's sake, So,
yeah. Otisburg.
That is a bad outfit.
Yeah. And it's still a classic. I will say that's the one thing about Superman the movie that does work. That is timeless. That costume.
Yeah, definitely. But it's just one of those things where I think there's a difference between watching an old movie for the first time and watching an old movie that you watched when it came out or around it came out. It's like it's just a different experience. I'm not sure how that works in the brain, but I think it does. So, so before I go to our final thoughts on the movie, is there anything else topic-wise that you would like to touch on? I've got an idea. I do have something I want to touch on.
Oh, really?
From a horror movie perspective, how would you rate this as a horror movie versus a science fiction movie? Do you think it leans more in one direction or the other, or does it lean in either of those directions?
I feel like conceptually it's trying to be a science fiction movie, but the execution of it feels more horror. And the farther the movie goes along, the more horrific and horror movie like it gets. Especially when you start getting to the ending and all of that. Because when you're talking about aliens, replacing human beings and things like that. I mean, that is like classic sci-fi staple. That stuff that you could have gone in 1950s movies and it wouldn't have felt out of place. But the way that they executed it here, where I mean, you get really creepy, pod people, and not only are they really creepy, you get instances of really horrific moments, like the girl disintegrating in Donald Sutherland's arms, and at just this dramatic moment. It's like, yeah, he thinks he saved her. He's like, yeah, we're gonna go and get on the boat and where everything's gonna be okay. And he gets back to her and she disintegrates in his arms, and the look of horror on his face sells the whole thing. That's really where it starts leaning more into horror. And the farther it goes along, the more moments like this you see, until you get that ending, and you just get Veronica Cartwright absolutely getting pointed at by this creepy pod person wearing the face of Donald Sutherland, and it's just like, yeah, that's horror. So it starts off as a science fiction movie, becomes horror movie. That's the way I would put it.
This is why Mike Nunley knows his horror. I mean, comments like that. The man knows his horror movies, and I got to agree with you. I saw a lot.
Author of The Dread, dealing with that very same theme.
Yep. And go check that out right now on Amazon, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that a lot of people have described this movie as one of the first sci-fi horror movies, and I have to disagree. I think the real genesis of sci-fi horror, the godfather of sci-fi horror, is another movie from the same year, and it's Alien. That is sci-fi horror. This movie is a horror/thriller with some sci-fi elements. And I think the sci-fi elements are a little bit forced, to be honest with you. It's one of the.
It's just the origin of it. I mean, it could have been from that was summoned by a Ouija board, and it would have been the same. It's just that the genesis of it is science fiction.
There's one thing I'm going to point out. There's a scene where Jeff Goldblum, Veronica Cartwright, Brooke Adams, and Donald Sutherland all retreat to Donald Sutherland's apartment, and they're talking about what's going on. And out of absolutely nowhere, this has never been brought up before. No one has talked about this. Veronica Cartwright's character says that this is all about, this is aliens from space, and this is how they get us, and everything. I mean, it's just dropped in there, and established that, oh yeah, it's aliens from space, and this is where it's all, and they all just go with it, and I'm like,
yeah,
really, really,
yeah, especially when you're dealing with skeptics like Matthew. Yeah, that's not so. Although I will give it points for being unintentionally funny, because it's Veronica Cartwright saying it. That Lambert is saying this makes me laugh.
Yeah, and it's funny also because there's a lot of similarities in look and tone, and even to a certain extent story, between Alien and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which come out the same year. Let's do this.
This movie got overshadowed by Alien. I mean, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I'm also going to say, rightly, I think Alien is.
Yes.
I'm going to say Alien's a better movie. So.
I would agree.
That's just. Let's do this real quick before we do final thoughts. What is the difference between a thriller and a horror? I'm going to let you take this one first, Steve. You're like a writer hat on.
When I'm thinking of thrillers, I'm often thinking of some of the Hitchcockian type stuff where it's not necessarily trying to scare you, it's just trying to build suspense, and it's trying to keep the audience at the edge of their seat, kind of wondering, is that bomb under the seat going to go off or not? There's a little bit of that, I think, mainly. With horror, you're really dealing, with, really deep-seated dreads, bringing them to life with the idea of exploring the human psyche with that, or at least, certain versions of that. or at least that's kind of how I would look at it. But I'm pretty sure that that's probably not quite correct.
I would agree with you, and I would add that I think Thriller not Thriller the video, but a Thriller, a lot of the time is dealing with suspense or danger that is building up. But a lot of it deals with situations or moments or one long scenario that goes through a thread that goes through a movie. But those, that thriller concept can deal with a number of different things. It can deal with, like Mission Impossible, I would say, are thriller movies.
Yeah.
James Bond could probably fall into thriller, in that you're building in some of the scenes where you're building up some of the thrillers. Jason Bourne, I would say, is definitely a thriller movie. Versus horror, as a general rule, no matter what you're dealing with, what kind of threat you're dealing with, and there's all kinds of threats, they're almost always existential threats, So,
I would say, if we're going to bring it to Hitchcock, that Psycho is a horror, North by Northwest is a thriller.
Yep, I think it's great. And I think you're exactly right there. But then you also look at the 39 Steps is a thriller, which is a spy movie. And, versus, let's go old school. I mean, it's not particularly scary now, but it's still a horror movie, but because of the danger it poses, Nosferatu from the 20s,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because of the nature of the threat, and it's an existential threat and everything that's going on. So I think, I almost want to say that, I don't think this is fair to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's almost like the stakes are just a little bit higher, because most of the time the threat you're facing in horror is life or death, or worse, the loss of your soul, the loss of your identity, whatever. I mean, that could be even worse.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Becoming a carrier for an alien embryo, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Like the movie Outbreak. I mean, there's an existential threat, but I don't think that's a horror movie. That's a thriller.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. So let's go to final thoughts on this movie before we get out of here. What are your final thoughts, and what would you rate this movie for yourself?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards high B, to be honest. And it's mainly because I think technically it's really well done. It is visually beautiful. The casting is first rate. They did a lot of really interesting things with it. And I will say that I think in terms of the origin of the aliens, it actually holds up. Like, I mean, I kind of feel like, we found out that, there was water on Mars. So, I mean, it's very possible that creatures like this could have evolved there and somehow, had made its way to Earth. It's not impossible. I would say that in a way, so the fact that it's aged well like that, and it's aged well because it's very simple. They just made it a very simple concept and just kind of ran with it. And then the fact that they made everything practical, and the practical stuff still holds up. It's not like, CGI stuff like we saw in last week's movie. There's none of that. My main problem is I kind of feel like it takes a long time to get there. The pacing feels very slow, and it takes a while to get there. And not all the performances, really grab you. Like, the dentist guy was just kind of a boring guy to follow. But I mean, it's like, it's Leonard Nimoy, it's Jeff Goldblum, it's Donald Sutherland at the peak of his career, doing absolutely amazing things. You get Donald Sutherland doing a classic meme at the very end. You get these really scary horror moments. I would say, like, I don't, and like you said, Alien from the same year was better. So I kind of am thinking of it that way. Like, this is a movie that could have been something if Alien did not exist. As it is, it's just kind of like a bit below.
Yeah. I've got two different grades on this movie, and it's not a cop-out. If I saw this movie before I had seen a bunch of other movies, so this movie kind of grandfathered me into a bunch of other movies, I think I would give it the B+ rating that you gave it, B+. it's not an A because Alien came out the same year, and Alien is the superior horror movie, is the superior science fiction movie. It's just superior movie, in my opinion. But this is a good, solid movie, but I do agree with you. It feels slow a lot of the time. Well, not a lot of time, but at different moments of the film. And the reason it feels slow for me is because I've seen this movie or variations on this theme 30, 40 times since then, in a lot of newer movies with maybe not as good at acting, but better effects, more modern pacing. I can think of any number of movies, space, cosmic horror movies that have come out in the last 7 or 8 years that are basically takes on this same theme, And so I've seen, and this is what I was talking about a little bit about being jaded or a little bit ruined by the fact that we watch so many movies for this show, and just because we're a fan of movies, that after a while you've seen a lot of this stuff, So, and then that's kind of where I'm feeling with it, is like, well, I've seen this idea, I've seen this concept, I've seen this basic story, and I know conceptually, mentally, that this story is where that all comes from, but I can't, it's hard to separate those two, So when I put it in that context, I say this is a very average movie as a C, But when I take it into its historical context, its importance, that's where I think it's bumped up to a B plus, So it's funny to say that, and it's one of the things that we would have talked about, like on Counting Corpses, when the show I used to do with Mike, where you talk about the history of horror, stuff like that. You look at like the original Halloween, you look at the original Friday the 13th. They're not as fast paced and everything, or maybe have the effects and everything that newer horror movies have, but you've got to recognize their importance to it. And if you experience for the first time when they come out, you have a different feel about it, that it's hard for younger generations who are experiencing for the first time to feel. But I think that's why this show is important too, because we're going back and looking at these old movies, and we need to understand that a lot of what we're getting is coming from these older stories and older movies as well. So
I mean, you built, everything's built on the shoulders of giants, so you kind of have to respect the giants. Even if you don't even if you don't necessarily see, what made it different.
Like another great example, every year I watch House on Haunted Hill, the Vincent Price version.
Yeah,
that movie's not scary to me at all anymore. In fact, I laugh at the point. Yeah,
I watch the riff tracks of that. It's it really works if you're doing like MST3K type stuff.
Yeah, but I've got to give it its props and understand that a lot of modern horror is built on a lot of the work that Vincent Price did, and the House on Haunted Hill and everything else. So,
and Price's performance is great. Like, that's worth watching.
Absolutely. So, so that said, I'm not disappointed that I watched this movie. I'm happy I watched this movie finally. It's about damn time, and I enjoyed it. And it made me appreciate what has come afterwards as well. So that was really cool. So
likewise, I would say, like, this is one of those movies that you really should see once just to be able to appreciate it. It's one of those that I may possibly go back to at various points, when I'm in the mood for it. This is one of those that I do kind of have that feeling about. And it's really just because it is a beautiful movie. And you just get some really great acting and some really good practical effects, some really good scenery work and just everything else. So there's definitely enough. There's just definitely enough about this movie that makes it worth coming back to, like, even if it's overshadowed by Alien.
Although I'm going to say, whoever was selling slime in 1978 made out like a bandit between Alien and this movie, man. There was a run on slime in Hollywood. So, all right. So next week, I'm not sure what the movie is going to be yet. Steve is up to pick a movie. So he will be picking our next sci-fi movie. So Steve will be thinking about that, and whatever he decides to do, we will be watching that movie next. Don't forget to tune in next week to Cinema Crusaders for that. Just a reminder, everybody, we're going to be doing science fiction for the rest of this month at least. And then starting sometime in September, we are going to transition into Halloween mode, and we're going to be doing horror movies. At least 10 years old, but we're going to be doing horror movies through Halloween. So we'll be doing that, and then we're going to get back to our original format, and we'll start talking about a little bit about that towards the end of October. So make sure you check us out on Cinema Crusaders. Where can everybody find you on social media, Steve, and any other shows and things?
Yeah, at Shadewing. That's kind of mainly where I do my hanging out these days when I have time to.
Cool. And make sure that if you're in the room for, you're teaching youngsters, right? If you're in the room to be taught,
yes.
Yeah, we're not going to mention exactly what he does, but
yeah, I kind of can.
Steve. So anyway, yeah, and you can find me at Nemesis FC2 all over the place. I'm on podcasts all over the place as well, doing stuff and writing, and we're all keeping busy doing our things. But wherever you are, if you can't find us anywhere else, make sure you find us on Friday afternoons here for Cinema Crusaders. So until next time, on behalf of all of us at Cinema Crusaders, I want to thank you all, and we will see you next weekend, or the start of the weekend for Cinema Crusaders. Make sure you keep that popcorn warm, find yourself a snuggly chair, and watch some movies this weekend. For Cinema Crusaders, we are out. Bye, everybody.